Okay. Welcome, everyone. Yair Eldan is with us all the way from Jerusalem. I can't tell you how delighted I am to welcome Yair. He's one of my favorite teachers. We learned together quite a few years ago. I think we've known each other for almost 10 years. You're a sweet and dear and wonderful friend. And you're also a teacher of, you identify as the only secular Israeli lawyer teaching Jewish law. I don't know where that still stands, but we're just delighted to learn a little bit of Parsha this week. Our Parsha is Parshat Vayikra. And Yair, my question is just tell us a little something about this Parsha that you're connected to this week.
Sure. I just want to say, Oliver, you were never a student of mine. We were always friends in a way, right? Even when we studied together. Thank you. I think what took my attention immediately is the fact that God, when he wants to tell Moses about the sacrifices and in such a details, before he actually speaks to him, the Torah says that he calls him. And in the rabbis 2,000 years ago, they were
Vayikra, the word Vayikra.
The word Vayikra, Vayikra el Moshe, Vayedaber Adonai elav. And the rabbis 2,000 years ago, they really picked on it and they saw it and they wondered, why does he have to call him before he speaks to them? And their answer is amazing for me as a modern Jew, because they say it's a sign for us. It's a sign for us to understand that before you actually speak to a person, you have to call him. You have to invite him to a conversation. And that's amazing in two things, because in two ways. The first one is our experience as human beings, being in a relationship. We are, in an age that we had one or two, even more relationships. And we know that one of the most difficult things about a relationship is to find the right time to speak to your spouse, to speak to the other person, the other important person in your life. And sometimes it burns inside you and you're so angry or so thrilled, but it's just not the right time. And finding the right time and in the right moment and preparing the other person for the conversation is one of the most difficult things I encountered. And I think it's a very deep insight of saying, call someone, Vayikra el Moshe. Before I'm speaking to you about sacrifices, and obviously it's kind of alarming for us to speak about sacrifices, but before I want to speak about a very important thing, and in a minute I want to say about something about it, if you allow me, but before it, I just want to invite you, Vayikra, and I find it something to the point.
There's an interesting aspect in the passage that we looked at in the Talmud before, which is talking about Belashon Bnei Adam, I think is the expression, that the Torah speaks in the language of people. And we have this expression often, which some rabbinically articulates the desire for the Torah to access teachings which are actually relevant to people. And yet, in what you describe, we've only spoken about 3 words of the Parsha. So how do we as Jews relate to this possibility that the Torah might, especially as somebody who identifies as a secular Jew, relate to this idea that 3 words of thousands of words in this Parsha could possibly come to actually teach us about something of how to be human beings? Given that the majority of the Parsha is about sacrifice, not about how people should relate to one another.
Sure. I mean, personally, maybe it's my character. I love talking about sacrifices and about the temple, and I don't have any aspiration of renewing sacrifices and from all sorts of points of view, but and also the temple. But there is something about the sacrifices. That's why it's interesting to me, and I don't deny it, and I find interest in it, because when I read all the little details about, korban chatat or korban
the sin offering.
Yeah, the sin offering, or korban or mincha, korban todah. When you bring a sacrifice because you're full of gratitude because something good happened to you. When I read it, I understand immediately that I'm reading literature that is dealing with basic human needs that are not, I'm not estranged to them. It's basic human needs that are universal, even today. Obviously, I won't go sacrifice, but if I feel them, the emotions that we're talking about, but there is something about the details that shows me that people were engaged because it actually answered a very deep question or deep need inside them, right?
No, and we begin this week about talking about the sin offering, and you mentioned before about that need to feel relieved of the bad things that we've done. When I've done something bad, I can sit with it for months, for years, even for decades. And here you're talking about a vehicle, you're describing a vehicle to achieve some kind of internal reparation or internal healing, which is with us.
And think about the duty. Before you actually sacrifice, you have to put your hands. Halachically, it's called smicha, to put your hands on the sacrifice, which could mean actually transferring maybe something to the sacrifice, or in a way duplicating yourself or transferring the whole of you into the sacrifice, which could sound very primitive, could sound very not connected to our very evolved society. But when you think about it, the smicha is something that points out that sacrifices are all about relief, all about unloading your very emotional self. And it could be emotional about, in a way of guilt or gratitude. And that's something that is very relevant to our lives. As you said before. And if I can take it from the Parsha, I would actually read in every detail. I can actually read or feel, in a way. It's not reading, it's feeling the basic human need of this relief, right?
So Yair, we have to finish another minute or so. I want to give you the last word. It's meaningful for me to learn with you in Jerusalem. I just had a flashback of us sitting in Carousella on Rehov Aza,
Right.
drinking coffee together. This is one of our pastimes in normal times of great delight. I want to wish your family a very happy and sweet and healthy Pesach, Passover in Jerusalem and beyond. And I want to give you the last word as we run into the last week before Pesach. Tell us one closing word and we'll finish.
And you put it nicely. Thank you very much, Oliver. It was such a great to talk to you and just to reconnect after this very difficult year. And in a way, Passover is not only liberating yourself from slavery. It's in the weather. You feel that something is opened. And in Israel, I don't know what's going on in England, but in Israel, you feel it now that something is opening. And hopefully it will open and will be in health.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.